Ezra Part 1, and I need to explain a few things in this one before I go too far here. So, the light just went out. Okay, sorry about that. That's the third bulb in less than a day and a half. It's expensive getting that thing working right. Ezra is very important to understand that this is the only text that talks about the returning of the captives and the rebuilding of his house, our Creator's house in Jerusalem. Now, the other thing you have to understand is that this text is so confusing that I have already spent 20 hours getting it ready for just to show you these videos. And the videos, I think, that's still going to be 3 hours long, maybe 4. But there's like 2 Cyruses that I know of that's in the text, in the Hebrew text. And one is tied to Nebuchadnezzar, and the other one is tied to Ezra and Esther and what is the other one? And Ruth. And it shows like there's these maybe 150 years later that they return. This text is telling us the answer that those books aren't actually true, because this text is going to prove them false. Okay. Now, they did a lot of changing in the text. I just wanted to make sure that I've said some of this to begin with and try to show how important what we're going to be finding here. Because it is in the first year of this guy here. Now, Cyrus. Now, it says Persia here, okay, and I changed it to Babylon. Now, why did I change it to Babylon and not Persia? Persia being that they were trying to set the text that it's 200 or 150 to 200 years later. Then Persia's king sends them down. He's the king for Persia. Can't be true. What reason is giving for why would the king 150 years later believe in the Hebrew creator? Okay, because the world had many false gods all over the place. So in this text, the word Persia needs to be put to Hebrew. In Cyrus here is actually going to be the king in Babylon who witnessed everything that happened to Nebuchadnezzar, because the text is going to start showing that. But I just wanted to set it up as the why I'm tying his name to Babylon and not Persia is because of the words that are coming up. Now, here's another problem that they have when they said Persia, which would be that 150 years later, is saying that this prophecy is actually started from, or this prophet is Jeremiah who is writing this. And he was left in the promised land after both nations had been carried off as captives. So he was guiding the people after those remnant that were left there, the elderly and those that hid themselves from being taken away. He was their leader at that time down there. So he couldn't have been around later when they're returning, okay? Because he was actually, some of his prophecies do start with the king before him, before the last king for Judah. So when I was looking at the text, this has to be removed. This ends up being a 4-verse. This ends up being a 4-verse. And you can see I've got 4-verse, 4-verse, 4-verse going through here. Now, this king here, YV stirred the spirit of Cyrus, which means heart. Spirit is actually heart. The word spirit means breath, soul, ghost, wind. Okay, those things that are pretty much invisible to the eye that needs this word to be used for them. They do have the word wind, but the word wind is also used as the meaning of a spirit, that this somebody causes the wind to do movement, causes movement. Okay. Now, I changed again here in Babylon, Persia to Babylon here. And he sent out a proclamation throughout his kingdom. Okay. So even though they're saying Persia, and it says, didn't need this verse here to make it a 4 verse. Thus says Cyrus, the king of Babylon. YV, which I'm trying to point out is, again, they're using the word Persia. YV, the creator in heaven. Now, how does he from Persia believe in YV, the creator of heaven, from Hebrew captives that were living under him, another kingdom 150 years later? How does he make his presence known to that one, to this king here? He could only known that if he was in Babylon and witnessed Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and I will say that this guy would have been the one who took over. If you read Daniel, you'll find that there's another king at the end that Daniel gets put into the lion's den from. I'm saying that this king here, this name here, is what they are really truly referring to, and this guy's name might need to be changed to the one in Daniel. But the object here is that he could only witnessed and believed what happened to Nebuchadnezzar, for the simple fact that Nebuchadnezzar was eating grass, they say, for 7 years. If you do a time study line, 7 years, you've got Nebuchadnezzar living to be 85. That didn't happen. So to shorten all the stuff down and figure everything out, it has to be closer to like 3 years that Nebuchadnezzar did this. He wouldn't have been doing it in the court. He couldn't have been doing this out in public. He had to be doing it in the courtyard. That way somebody has to rule over the people. Well, they could just be saying, well, he's sick in bed. Okay. So this guy has to either be his brother or a close uncle that would be to him, okay? Because somebody was ruling those 3 years. And if you want to think 7, then 7 years. And then this guy becomes king after Nebuchadnezzar, and if he witnessed Daniel's, because he understood that Nebuchadnezzar, when he regained his whole conscience, he goes around and Nebuchadnezzar does a few things that can only be said that he would have done it. In the Bible, there's no other king that gets affected as much as Nebuchadnezzar and the Egyptian king. So we have this guy who took over from Nebuchadnezzar. And you have to understand that what happened there, Nebuchadnezzar's death, was that his son had brought in the utensils to dine with his buddies and wives, and then the hand wrote on the wall, and they needed Daniel to interpret it. And that means that Nebuchadnezzar was again sick in old age, that his son had the ability just to go and get those utensils. So his prince was starting to rule the kingdom. And what happened is Daniel come in and told him, you're going to die, and his father dies. And then it is this king that takes over. The kingdom of Babylon, YV, the creator in heaven. saying, this is the kingdom that he's sending out. This is what he's saying. Has given me this kingdom. It's kind of all, it had the words all kingdoms, but can't be a kingdoms. It has to be this kingdom. You don't see any breakup of Babylon at all in any of the text. I don't care how the secular world puts whatever it is. I'm using knowledge only from the Hebrew text here to say some of these things. Has given me this kingdom. In other words, it was almost handed back over to him because his son had failed. He was really kind of like, he was still a friend of Nebuchadnezzar's or brother of Nebuchadnezzar, and when his son died, who could take over but his brother? Just fill right in real quick. But most important of all, this verse right here, he has appointed me. This means our Creator has talked to Cyrus, okay? And when you think about what happened, it was after Daniel was thrown in and then taken out that this time we don't have any text for, but the words right here say that Cyrus was talked to. And Cyrus would have known he was the creator of heaven, because that's how Nebuchadnezzar described him. There was something else that you might find interesting, and that is in the 1611 preface, they write that the first emperor of Rome changed our Creator's calendar to set it at the winter solstice, and the learned man should be happy over this. Not that they're happy that they're changing our Creator's calendar. These are the guys that are editing your text and edit it into English. So, but what it does mean, though, somebody who is very powerful, who had proclaimed that he is the creator and he is the Hebrew creator's God, Daniel's God is the high God that listens to them and watches them on earth. He would have said, he is now my creator, I am a believer that he exists. He would have had the authority to change whatever calendar they had to the calendar of the Hebrew creator, our creator's calendar that he had set up through Moses. Now, and that is the summer solstice, is the first day of the first year, okay? Now, how could this happen other than these words right here? That he has appointed me, meaning he had come out and told Cyrus to do this, okay? Now this is very important because not only that the calendar was set to the Hebrew creator, it was now Cyrus who witnessed Nebuchadnezzar, witnessed Daniel, would have had contact at that time and said, okay, yes, he is the creator. I'm witnessing this stuff too. But when our creator talked to him, he has the words, he has appointed me, okay, to rebuild his house in Jerusalem, which is by, they had Judah here. Now, nobody would have understood Judah at all at that time. Now, let's see, I have this one here, and this is at the time of Joseph being taken to Egypt. Now, what you see is this river right here. It is actually still named today the River of Egypt. So they used water as boundary lines back then, okay? A lot of them did. In fact, when you look at the tribes, how the land was divided up, definitely used rivers. Now, this is where it becomes important to understand that they wouldn't have known this little area here, but they would have understood Egypt. Okay? So I had to change it to Egypt. And then he says, whoever among his people, his creator is for you. Whoever is among his people, there, it would have been there, which means male and female. We have, the text has very little, I can't find sentences, verses that have women entering into heaven or partaking in a lot of these things. Okay? So whoever among his people, their creator is for you. Let him go, let them go. Let them go up to Jerusalem. Well, we know word up is wrong. So let them go to Jerusalem, because we're coming from Babylon, we're coming down. Even if it's Persia, they got to come down, not up. Okay, and that's very important. And they kind of want to point out which is in Judah. Don't need those words there, because I'm sticking to a 4-verse. And you can see these 4 verses connect together. They're making these formats, I don't, if you haven't watched before, they make small paragraphs. Okay, and the more they group together, the better the text can be proven that these are the first formats. Because you can see that the format is there, and they're adding just words here and there to change things. And you'd figure after 2,000 years of editing, the text, they've had plenty of time to get away with changing a lot of this and adding what they want to add, because they surely do not believe our Creator exists. Okay? To go to Jerusalem and rebuild his house, rebuild the house for YV. Okay. Now, to find a format out of these 3 aren't needed. Okay. And every survivor at whatever place you live, let that place support you with silver and gold. Okay. Now, this is what happened with our Creator again when they left Egypt. They did the same thing. Okay. And you're saying why? Is because there's things that are needed to support people living when you start establishing anything as a group of people. And we're going to find that again in the text later. But then it's talking about all these other things that are needed together with a free will offering. Well, they wouldn't have known about any of this. They wouldn't have cared about any of this. In fact, there's no such thing as a free will offering. This text is just gone. It's not needed. And then it has the words, the priests and Levites arose. The head fathers from Judah and the priests and Levites rose. I'm sorry, but it was the priests that our Creator killed. There were no more priests. You can't have a priest without having them working in the house for our Creator, because they're supposed to offer up the sin offering. Okay? So there's no such thing as priests in Babylon. Okay? So we know that that's wrong. But we have this verse out here that now does not connect to anything here. So I can get rid of that one as well. And to connect this here with this, I had to put everyone's, with the S, heart. Our Creator had stirred to go up. I needed to change it. Well, actually it was like this. Go up and rebuild. I guess I needed the word the here. So this needs to be put back in. That was for YV and Jerusalem. He was telling them to build both, okay? to go, and so this would have just been not needed, to go and rebuild the house for YV and Jerusalem. Now, when it comes to this here, we already have text saying that they gave them silver, they were to give them silver and gold, but it was those about them or would have been around them. So the problem I have with this is that they're captives, so they're pretty much slaves all over the place. They were sold to as slaves. Captives were changed into slaves, doing the work people didn't want to do. So you can see that Babylon had become wealthier, and this is what they were doing, was gathering people to work their fields for them and things like that. So I have a problem with them just being around. Everybody knew who they were as people living among them, okay, with their own homes, their own land. I don't see that. Also, well, I don't want to get ahead of class here. And they encourage them with silver and gold, with goods of cattle and valuable, aside from all these things. Another time they give a free will offering. Well, this text doesn't need to be, because it's already commanded by the king that they are to support you with silver and gold. Okay. Then King Cyrus had them bring out, not brought out, bring out, not articles, but the utensils. And it's that King Nebuchadnezzar had taken, not carried away, but taken from his house. Okay. So we have that straightened out. And then it was, and put in their treasury. See, it had the house for his creator. This should have been the word temple, because you put false gods in temples. Our creator had a house because he was meeting with them. There's a difference when you say temple and a house. When you use the word temple, you're actually calling our creator a false god in a false in a pagan temple. So here they're trying to make their creator as a house, or has a house. That's just not true. And he wouldn't have put it in there if the thing here is in I used the word treasurer here because the word treasure is down here. Okay, so Meredith the treasurer, see, this would have been more like this. I just wanted to give it a reminder that this is where I got the word from here to here. So he put them in their treasury. Oh, I don't know. I don't think that's spelled correctly. So let me do a quick one. Okay. In their treasury. And then this guy here counted it out to Daniel. Now, the word counted out means how many of these things, and you can see them in the these numbers here. Okay, those numbers are not important for us, but the key here is counted them out to who. Now, I told you that Daniel's name was changed to some great big kind of name from Nebuchadnezzar, but we have that same style of name here, okay, with all these Nebuchadnezzar type of endings, okay? But the object is, it was Daniel who was sent back with these, because Cyrus was a friend of Daniel's, witnessed all this information, so he would have been able to trust Daniel that, look, I just got a command from our God, and he said to have me send you down there and rebuild. He was appointed. You have to have somebody who is close enough to the king that the king could be trusted, okay? And it says prince. This guy was a prince. Well, he couldn't have been a prince. You don't ascend a prince to become a governor. A prince has royalty access. He wouldn't want to go to some little small place out of the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't a prince. They had governors down there, and this guy was to be the governor for Israelis, not for Judah, but for Israelis. Now the point here is Judah is a kingdom, or a nation that was taken into captivity. But the object is, they sent him to Jerusalem, okay? So this was to build Jerusalem and the house for our Creator. He does not say go down there and rule all of Judah, because somebody was already down there, okay? But how many people were down there is the real question. So now we have the word Daniel put in here to set the text up that goes with the story I've been trying to tell you, that Cyrus would have witnessed Nebuchadnezzar. He had to be close enough because he became king afterwards, and he is claiming our Creator gave him that kingdom. It wasn't passed on to somebody else, and he had witnessed, and then he was told to send somebody. So this has to be the truth of what the story is leading to. So it wasn't a couple hundred years later. It was, example, in Daniel, everybody sees the words 70 weeks and it will be rebuilt. Well, the thing here is how long does it take to rebuild a city, Jerusalem, with walls? And that means that all those places that were burnt down in Jerusalem have to be rebuilt. And how long was the land desolate? Okay. Well, the time from Daniel getting this prophecy from our Creator of 70 weeks, if we change the word weeks to years, we have a real good understanding that this now has to mean that it's at Babylon's time. It is the second, it's the king that followed Nebuchadnezzar that did assign Daniel, because he was very young when he was taken up there. Actually, how long were they up there before they were sent down is also the question. I've done my study on how old Nebuchadnezzar is, how old Daniel is, and when he's starting to return. And I've got Daniel starting out like at 14 to be taught. To be taught their knowledge and schooled by them. And then there's got to be some time for Nebuchadnezzar to do all those things. So there's this time for the 70 years is going to be in this time that they're already there before they're sent down. Now that's very important to understand that, because down later we're going to actually get dates and times. Now when it comes to these wow, my throat, I can't believe it here. I was just trying to read the time and needed to change some things over there. Okay, these aren't important, but we do need to know that they were counted out. Okay, so this, we don't actually need to know these, because 29 duplicates, like, why would they be duplicates? These were the grouping here, and they're trying to stick this number here in of how much silver and gold was sent to them. That isn't a number that's needed. Well, only a half hour. I don't know if my voice is going to make it. All the utensils were made from gold and silver. And here again, that name, Daniel brought them with the captives to Jerusalem. And they didn't go up from Babylon. Okay? So they're thinking Jerusalem is above Babylon. Okay. Now these are this starts chapter 2, where it talks about these are going to be all the names of the people that returned. This is just not necessary to know. Here we have gatekeepers. Now the problem here is that when it says who these are, it's got gatekeepers, temple servants, Solomon's servants, sons from priests. Okay. Now, gatekeepers. Those are the ones that are standing in front of the gate to enter into the courtyard. They were actually, they had to be related to Levites, okay? Because Levites didn't have a land. They were to be among the people as judges and teachers, and to be taken as priests to his house, as our Creator set. Like they can only serve until they're 50, and they have to be 25 before they start, and things like that. So you have 13 priests, and among the 13 priests, they have attendants, not servants. These are not temple servants. They are only to serve that tribe's priest, and so his attendants would have been from those people in that a land that was given to them. Okay, so these guys could not exist. Okay, and then it says sons from Solomon. Sorry, they're all from Levi. So this is all just not true here. And the priests, like I said before, they were killed because they didn't believe our Creator. I mean, when you look at the prophecies and you start understanding the text, Malachi 2 verse 11, the second part of that, where it says that Judah the kingdom married the daughter of a foreign god. That means that all the people that was left in Judah after Israel, kingdom of Judah, or nation of Israel, had went into captivity, it was the priests that got corrupted. They started meditating to have this sex practice to marry the daughter of a foreign god, and he killed them for it. Okay, so priests don't exist unless you actually have a house. So the text here is just ridiculous. Then it says they should not eat the most holy things. Okay, the problem is they never ate from that. That was Eli's two sons started taking away from the offering that goes to be burnt on the altar. When a lamb or goat was brought to them for this action of wanting to be forgiven for not following the 12 commandments, and the 12 commandments are sins because our Creator described them as sin offerings that are needed to be forgiven. Didn't need to be forgiven for a lot of other things, but the object is these were the ones that our Creator named as sin offerings. They started saying, they took these rams or lambs to them, and their priest would remove the hide, and then they would remove the muscles, the meat. This was called, the action for your sin is to be forgiven. When it has that represent our Creator is going to forgive them. if you take the muscles and refer to that as what causes the animal to have action, then it would be this muscle is representing your action for your sin. The priest would hang those meats up on hooks on the altar and then set it on fire and burn it crispy so it could be disappeared and forgotten, okay? And then the priest would go in and ask for the forgiveness. But the person outside would see the smoke rising, knowing that the priest is in there doing his job. The priest, when they started eating the food, was at Eli's time, and our Creator killed him for it, okay? And then, until a priest stood up with these two little spinning top things to divine. Our Creator was killing diviners, so this is not true, okay? None of this here is absolutely true that we got here, okay? So most likely these names are not correct neither. Now this verse here, can it tie to these verses here? I didn't need them because when they arrived, okay, when they arrived at the house for Wyvie, this will be here, green. Okay, so this is needed. Most offered willingly. For the restoring. Okay. What I did is I'm saying it was said restore it on its foundation. Now, the problem here is that people don't understand what David had built. Do I got time? Yes. What happened was David had 80,000 hewers. Solomon said, we built him a house forever. Granite blocks were hewed. What color was the blocks? The blocks to make his house, there's two granite quarries. Red granite is next to Jerusalem, and red is next to Hebron, where David was living for the first 7 years. But we have to go back to Moses' time when our Creator told him to use ram hide and goat hide to build the tent for meeting with him. They are white, so now you know they used Hebron granite blocks to make the house. But the foundation underneath it, what was that made out of? The fence that goes around to make a courtyard. What did they make that out of? Well, if you understand the story of Rehoboam, that's Solomon's son who became king. He went to Shechem, and the laborers there were saying their work was too heavy. Well, next to Shechem is a limestone quarry, but it is easier to work with. But they were making large blocks, and it was heavy. That's what they used as the floor of the courtyard and the wall around his courtyard, okay? Now you know that story of how it ties into being all white ground. The house is white. So now you know that there is a foundation that could not have been just broken up. They wouldn't have broken it up. There's no reason for them to do this. So to restore it on its foundation, you really don't need the words on the foundation. Just said they were most offered willingly for restoring, and according to their ability, they gave to the treasurer for the work. Well, it depends, because I've got two verses here that need to be there. So out of these two, which one am I going to get rid of? Okay. We have to have this one because this is what's these two are pretty much talking about. So this we don't really need, okay? Offered willingly and according to their ability. This means there would have been less, everybody wanted to help, or everybody there was proud to return and wanted to partake. So you need to have them there representing even the smaller and poorest ones that weren't going to do the work on the place, but they needed the money to do the work. So according to their ability, I need to have that text in there. I gave it to the treasurer for work. That's pretty much, you know, that they're going to put it someplace to be used, and that's the purpose. Now here is what they gave. 1,000 gold coins. I had to add the words coins here because it's not drachma, it's not manas, minus whatever. They were gold coins and silver coins. Okay. And the Judeans lived in our cities, and Israel's in their city. This is very important because you can't have this stuff here have this stuff yet because they haven't even designated the priest yet. There's no house for our creator. There's nothing built, so they don't even have these gatekeepers or singers or whatever they want to put. That's all just false. But those that came down with them, the ones that were taken first to Babylon, would have been Judeans. But we find Israelis, the ones that from the nation of Israel that was taken like 100 years before or less, somewhere in there. They were in Assyria. So when Babylon was ruler, they were ruling over the Assyrians as well at this time. So they were also returned to their cities. So now you see who's returned, and they went to live in our cities. Now, how many came down, we have no idea. But what I'm going to do here, and because I know I need to clean up the text here, and I want to be able to show you, so when you turn into the end of this video, that what did you actually finally get done here. So I'm just going to stick it here, and a lot of you have seen me do this before. I need 8 point here, which is going to remove all the blue stuff, just like that. And then I need 2 spaces, 1 space, and that helps clean up a lot of the text. We know it's a 4-verse format, so this we don't need. The number 2 no more. This, oops, I didn't make that small enough. Sorry for the not talking to give you something to listen to, but now you see, whoops. Now let me go through here and say that, well, this doesn't need the green on it, but I need this. Oh, that's not good. And now this, I will correct later, but right now, for a screenshot, I'm going to hold it here, and you can see there is a 4-verse pattern here, and each of them are small paragraphs. Okay, so all that text, we got a little bit here that we have found, and we now know from me guessing, we can say that yes, it was, this king was the king after Babylon. Okay, the clue here was Daniel, being his name changed and having the same ending there. The other clue was our Creator had to be known to this king. This king had to be close to Nebuchadnezzar to witness all that had happened, to make him truly believe. And then he was a friend of Daniel, and then our Creator gave him this message to have it rebuilt. Okay, and also the other thing that was very important was that their year was set up according to the Hebrew calendar in our Creator's timeline. And then we have proof in the 1611 preface that the editors were the translators were very happy to change our Creator's will for when the first day of the year is, because the first day of the year happens to be his passing over, their firstborn sons, killing them. So now you actually know that if you're paying attention, you would find that the summer solstice is the true Passover day. And here you have text, and I'll start again with the next video and the next part of the text here. So I'll be starting right here. See you then.